All right, it is 5:32. We will call the meeting to order. Everyone stand for the pledge, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, sorry about that, guys. Technical difficulties. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? No. All right, hopefully everyone got a chance to read the letters of correspondence. We have 3 resignation letters, and we want to just wish them all the best in whatever avenues they choose to pursue, and thank them for their time. We had a couple of them who have been here for a long time, so we thank them for their time with Canyon Creek and wish them all the best. Administrative report.
Madam Chair and members of the board, thanks for having us. Outside of the agenda, I just wanted to publicly thank Ms. Roberts with her efforts in closing the budget down. Sorry about that. I feel we're in a good spot, and I say that just because our enrollment's up and things are looking pretty good. Not on here, I wanted to tell you that we're fully staffed. As of today, about 4 o'clock, we hired a 3rd paraprofessional. She agreed, and we have a music teacher, and we have a resolution to our 2nd grade vacancy that happened last week. So we're excited about the resolution, and it's looking good. With regards to the windows, so the supply chain is always a bit challenging. They're supposed to be shipped on September 9th. However long it takes to get here, and then they spend a couple days at the window place to get glazed, and then once they're glazed, they're gonna start putting them in. I met with contractors, and we have a plan within the building where we're gonna start with the music rooms and move around. As I said before, we have a room set up over here so we can pull classrooms out with little disturbance to the learning while they're placing the windows in. They think they can do about 3 a day. Once they get the system down, they might be able to do it faster, I would think. What might take a little longer is they gotta come back around and put the trim up and make that casing look nice. In conjunction with that then, as you know, you approve purchases of blinds. The blind person will come in and measure the new windows and get that ordered. These are on their way. They should be being installed very soon in the new part of the building. But the old, where the windows are being replaced, they had to wait for the casing measurements because they're to size. Moving forward with the freezer, I was in contact with them. They want to get out here and start looking at preparing the area, move some concrete. We pulled the tree out. Our only concern is we still don't necessarily know where the main sprinkler line is. So it might require us to kind of reroute that a little bit, but Earl's well aware that he says he can probably get that done, no problem. And we're getting close to when we might be pulling those sprinklers out soon, so it shouldn't be a big deal. If you've spent time with the documents, there was a compliance memo that came from the board association, and I shared that with you because there are just some things that happen within schools that I think you need to be aware of, about equity, about service, Title IX issues across the board. We are starting to get different students here, right? And it might push on some of our thinking a little bit about how we provide them a learning environment where they're not feeling threatened, those kinds of things. So just be aware of those issues. That would include transgender, all those kinds of things that schools deal with. Not that we have those issues on the table right now, but we're up 20-some students, if not more, and it's just going to change. So you got to be aware of it. The strategic plan meeting is penciled in for the 17th. The lady has not necessarily necessarily confirmed with me. I've sent her 2 emails. I think they've been there training themselves, but, she gave those 2 dates, the 16th and 17th. I quickly told her we'd like to pencil in the 17th. It looks like we'll start at 7:30, we'll provide a supper, and then we'll go to about 8:30.
4:30.
4:30 to
4:30
8:30, yeah.
That's
Thank you. And, then there will be discussion like, what are next steps? Would those be Zoom meetings to tie it up, tighten it up and finalize it, those kinds of things. But I'm excited to have that. If you move down to my goals, I think part of my charge as your employee is to deploy your strategic plan. And that really should be the conversations that we're having. What are we doing to create the vision that you've set within your strategic plan? And that's really should be our conversation. So any purchases that we make, anything that we bring to this table should fall through that lens, first thing. And I'm excited to get that in writing and kind of chiseled in granite so we can start moving the building more strategically. It's not that we're not strategic in our decisions, but it does give us a North Star in terms of improving the learning environment, the physical environment, all those kinds of things. And it also gives you a tool to work through, ask hard questions, and push on kind of what you guys agree as a priority for what we want to do. And I think it's just best practice. What it does then for me is it gives me backing, and it gives me the ability then to scale that into the classrooms. Rather than it being my idea, it's a strategic plan that we've all agreed to, and we can push it that way. So it really kind of gives us some leverage within making this even a better place than it already is. One of the things I need to finalize this year, and it's been kind of in concert with the MTSS, because you need to have a fairly active and solid MTSS before we can really move and become a Title I school. So we're part of a pilot program with OPI and ACE. We have a strategic team that is implementing MTSS, and we're going to have all the pillars in place to be able to file that application and say, yeah, we're moving in that direction. So I'm excited to have that. We're going to continue to try to grow our population. Today, we're going to have a little bit of discussion on the open enrollment policy, the 3141. And I just want to kind of back off on that a little bit until we get a strategic plan. But nonetheless, our goal is to grow our population and continue to grow our classrooms. But our strategic plan doesn't allow us right now to say no. And we have to be able to say no. We already are at capacity in the 6th grade. So we have to have the ability to kind of say no, or we gotta say no, and this is why, and you guys vote on that. You guys have to have some stuff in writing to protect you, because you just can't, whimsical decision, say no to people. So that's why we'll have a little bit of talk around 3141. But regardless, we want to grow. Doesn't necessarily mean grow the learning environment in numbers, right? It could just be in what we offer. We could be thinking about some kind of CTE offering. We could be thinking about expanding our sports, maybe bring football back, whatever it is. I think just growth in terms of population and what this school provides will be our focus as a governing body. A celebration to Haley and Danny. I think last year they set in motion a fairly strong and positive culture that we were able to maintain all year long. We hired some new staff, but we did not have a mass exodus, and people wanted to come back. I also extend that to the board for having a very successful negotiation that is still in conversation among the teachers. They feel good about it. they walk away feeling recognized and heard and valued. So that is all part of maintaining and recruiting quality people to come here. So that's important to me, that we continue with that vibe and that strategic push. So it's how we advertise ourselves, how we present ourselves on Facebook, how we present ourselves out in public, all those kinds of things that would help us grow everything about Canyon Creek. So that's important to me. I talked about deployment strategic plan, you know the importance of that. Our charge is really to provide learning experiences for kids. Post-COVID, I think we know more than we've ever known about teaching and learning. I do think that it's important for this particular environment at Canyon Creek to glean onto the strategic plan through alignment or whatever, and come up with their own voice around what they're going to hang their instructional strategies around. There are two main voices in education. One is a Marzano voice and one is a Hattie voice. The reliable school work of Marzano, or the visual learning work of Hattie. I tend to lean on the Hattie side, but I do think as we start aligning curriculum, as we start having instructional conversations to grow that skill set within our classrooms, we're going to have to all start having the same vocabulary, all start talking the same way about instruction and the strategies that we provide, which are housed in MTSS, the Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 instruction. So all that should align. And I think really that would be my charge and my goal, to start making sure that those things are in alignment, which is in alignment with your strategic plan eventually. So those are all big picture things. I do think our role and my role, you said direction as a leader, we said direction, and then we rely on our people to get us there. And that's why those are kind of big star things. I think it's our role to set the direction and we move forward. So I would take any questions, Madam Chair, board members.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I think the future's bright.
So to, I'm excited to get some strategic planning under our belts and get that done. So that would be awesome.
I think it could really change the language here, right? And kind of what we're talking about, and really have mutable administrative decisions that might not impact us fiscally immensely, but make a huge difference within the walls of our classroom. And it started with a successful negotiation. We sent some people to some conferences this summer. They're very excited to start deploying that. So the momentum's there. You just need to harness it and shape it in the direction that you want. And you guys have great voices. You set direction. And it's important that you have a vision through that strategic plan and your voices are.
Yeah, I think that'll be good. We just haven't had anything for so long to back up what we've been doing.
Right.
You know, so I think that'd be great. Any other questions? Anything else in your administrative report?
Hello, Madam Chair.
Okay, on to new business. Can I get a motion for the setting of lunch fees?
I'll make a motion to set the fiscal 25 school lunch.
I can second that motion.
So I got to check one thing off of my learning list this year, was I finally got to learn how these rates are made. So that was great. So I got a lot more clarification on setting these, just because we kind of had that mid-year change back last year with the lunch price. So what I was told at OPI School Nutrition, she's our regional specialist. So the rates that we set at the school, the student side for breakfast and lunch have more of a rule of thumb. Whereas the adult prices have that set that you have to be above that number. Otherwise it gets dinged in your school nutrition audit. But the rule of thumb for the student ones is that you take what, reimbursement rate you are at. There's 4 different tiers for that. And right now, cause they go off of 2 years prior, what your, free and reduced numbers were. So, for right now still, we are the less than 60% plus 9 cents. And that plus 9 cents is because when we came on, we have been grandfathered in, so we get this extra 9 cents, which is cool. And so like I said, it goes off of 2 years prior, so that's why we're the less than 60 still. So it'll catch up to us when we go to the title wide, and I did let her know that we are in that process of trying to get there. So you take what your free reimbursement rate would be compared to that paid rate and subtract it, and that difference is kind of what you could go up to. So for the student breakfast, we're at $2.50 is what last year was, and then the lunch was $3.75. You could raise the lunch price up to $4.01 if you want to. The breakfast was at a pretty good spot.
And it'd still be within that.
That would be within that rule of thumb. And then as far as the adult ones go, those I would highly suggest changing, because right now, because all of the rates go up every year, we are not in compliance now with the rates from last year. Last year's breakfast for adults was $2.75, and then the lunch was $4.50. It's $4.50 or $4.75. The breakfast would need to raise to at least $3, and then the lunch for the adults would need to raise to at least $5. That would get you within compliance. Again, you could always go higher if you want, but it has to at least be within compliance. Again, I wouldn't suggest
But
raising.
we're paying for the kids it's at.
The
We're in
kids,
compliance, right?
yes, they don't have the same rules that the adult ones do, because you're getting the reimbursement, whereas the adult meals, that is straight, whatever you charge is your reimbursement money. We're not getting money from school nutrition for adult meals. I would highly suggest not changing either of the student ones, even though you could change the lunch one. I just think taking into account our community, the $3.75 is still, it's still good for our
It's
community.
doable,
And
yeah.
quite honestly, like for Fund 112, adding that quarter, we're still gonna have to supplant Fund 112 with general fund money at the end of the year. It's not gonna make a big enough difference. And I just think that you would lose ground with the community if you did raise it compared to the benefits for that.
I think I would be good with leaving the kids and raising the adults to where we need to be in compliance with. I think that would be a good move, just to get us to where we're supposed to be. I don't think we need to go higher than the 3 and the 5. But at least now to start
Yeah.
with,
I would agree with that.
get us into compliance, and I think we should leave the kids as, you know, that, I think that felt good to the community where we put it back to.
Yeah, and again, if we can get, this hammered out and get it done next year, it won't necessarily matter.
Right.
Because if we go to title wide, it's a whole different game. And they aren't gonna have to worry about pain. None of them are. So, it's kind of like maybe one last year of doing this.
What do you think? Yes?
Yep.
Can I get a motion?
Make a motion to keep the breakfast rate for students at $2.50 and raise the adult price to $3. For lunch, keep the student rate at 375, is that what it is?
Mhm.
Okay, student,
Lunch, yes, sorry.
and then raise the price for adult lunches to $5. I did say that was motion, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Alright, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any public comment? Alright. You caught up there? Okay, alright.
Okay. Now, the fun one, I have been living and breathing this report for 2 weeks. It's my favorite one, as Mr. Harvey has heard. Okay, so we're gonna go over the TFS, yep. So the trustees' financial summary, and what this is an accumulation, it's a summary of all of last year's expenditures and revenues. So how we used the money that we were given. I'm gonna try to go through every page, but I'm just gonna summarize them. The first page is our project reporter codes. These deal with, our Fund 115. This is, they just like to know what we are using, but this is just an internal accounting system. Some of these, if it's federal, they determine what that number is. Otherwise, it's just, like I said, something that we use. It just really helps narrow down some of those grants, in Fund 15 so that we know, I know which one I'm on. Going on, we're gonna go to the balance sheet. And what the balance sheet is, it gives a brief snippet of each fund on there. It shows you all of your revenues, any deferred inflows, and deferred outflows. So deferred inflow is any money that is supposed to come in last year, but we haven't received it yet. So it's just putting it to the side that money, we're taking it, that money is still in our revenue. And then deferred outflows is the same, only it's money that needs to be sent out. So like, purchase orders, so if our items haven't come in yet, I can't pay it yet. So that's just what a deferred outflow is. And then it just kind of gives you the total fund and, balance, the total liabilities and equity for those. And like I said, the balance sheet is just that summary page to really briefly look at them. When you get to page, and there's gonna be about 5 empty pages in there because we don't have those funds. And I just wanna briefly mention, when it says the interlocal fund on page 11, that is the preschool interlocal fund. We do not house our other interlocal fund, that is on, Blue Creek's side. Roger handles that one, so it shows on their TFS under theirs. Okay, so then, skip through all the balance sheet. When you go to page 15, this is when it really starts giving you more of those detailed numbers. And it shows you last year's values too, so that you can kind of compare. So again, the top part is just showing you those revenues and just the codes with them. And there are a few that had some changes in there. Some of those are just due to some of the taxes that came in. Some of them we didn't have this year, and so that's why they're like, 1113, that's why there's a 0. We just don't have those taxes this year. You can see the big one, the big 2 is our real property taxes and then the direct state aid that we get. Our taxes went up and our district state aid went down a little bit, so it's kind of a wash on those two. You can see one of the bigger ones was the 3120, the guaranteed tax base aid. That did take a bit of a hit. And that's just, these are all just what make up our total budget. This is just the breakdown of it. So none of these were surprise numbers, because they were set last year when I did the budget for last year. And then the second half of these sheets are all of your expenditures, all your transfer outs. It looks like a lot, but all that it's doing is showing you the coding of how these are broken down. So some of these you might see the same title, it's just gonna be in a different area. So most of your teachers fall under like the 1XXX. SPED is a different number, it's 280 instead of 100, so there's just a couple different there. And then by page 17, it is going to give you the schedule of changes worksheet at the bottom. And it just shows you the beginning fund balance, current revenues, current expenditures, and your ending fund balance. So I will say on this one, it's always a bit of a learning curve with this one, for being able to do the transfer into the interlocal fund at the end of the year. I put in you put in $100,000 is what was agreed on at the end of the year. I thought that was a great amount, and then you get here and you're like, oh, we could have probably put in more. So I'm still learning how to estimate that impact at the end of the year. I always like having more money in there than going negative, obviously. And a good part is that to our taxpayers, what this money does at the end of the year, so when you see this ending fund balance, so it says 330,000 for the general fund. Some of that money is going to resupply the reserves for the general fund. So that's great because all of our reserves are topped. And what the other part of that does, because the reserves for the general fund are only 10%, so it's obviously more than 10%. What that other part does is it gets reappropriated into the fiscal year 25 budget, and that does help lower taxes for our taxpayers. So while it's reappropriating for us and it's kind of a wash on the money, because we're getting old money instead of getting new money because we didn't use it, it is still helping our community. So it's always that fine line of knowing how much to take out, how much to keep in. But I felt the general fund did really, really good. We ended up only using 90% of our general fund budget. So for being in a year when we were a little worried about how it was gonna go, that's fantastic. So hopefully we can keep that momentum this year. So that's the general fund. That's the biggest one. So does anybody have questions on the general fund? No, okay. All of the others are like it, only they are like one sheet. So transportation is another one. This one is, again, it's levied. But this one is a permissive levy one, but it does go off of our bus routes. So while it is one where you can technically choose the budget, there are still quite a lot of guidelines on what that number can be. So you can see that we did have a bit more revenue come in, and that's because we did up our budget from last year. And then our expenditures actually went down, which is great. We didn't have as much as we thought that we were going to. Yeah. Yeah, not by a whole lot, but it did go down a bit. So our ending fund balance in the transportation was 76,000 and some change. And again, that got reappropriated to help fund reserves. Fund 12, my favorite. So our revenue, we took in a lot more this year, which is great. That means we fed more kids. And our expenditures were down compared to the previous year. It's still a lot though, and it was still a hit. So you don't see it on this report, on this one, but we did have to do a transfer from our general fund into the Fund 112 at the end of the year. And I did do enough where you can see that we do have that ending fund balance in there. It's not a whole lot, but I just didn't want them to start at zero. Fund 13 is our tuition fund. And this one, we did take in less revenue, but we had more expenditures. And that's because, so when it was set, at the end of last year for the budget, we had less kids going to the ranch. And then it flipped, and so that's why our expenditures are more, because we didn't know that we were gonna have some of those kids. So it's always kind of a flip-flop on the tuition fund, but again, it's still doing good, it's still healthy. As of right now that I know of, we have one, correct Kelly, one going to the ranch right now. And they do require a, route for them, so that is something that hits the transportation fund, is their personal route. So we do have to pay for that,
right.
but that's to
Yeah.
Sarpy, that's not, per student. Then the retirement fund, we had more revenue come in, just a little bit more. And then our expenditures were less. Which is good, I mean, we haven't had anybody retire, but it is really good to keep an eye on the retirement fund numbers. In case we ever do have a mass retirement or anything like that, you can see our ending fund balance in there was 104,000 and some change. Which for being last year's beginning fund balance was only 82,000, so that's, it's a bit healthier. Okay, the miscellaneous programs fund, Fund 15, this is where all of our grants go. So you'll see like Cole's Pantry, SRS, that is REAP, just so you guys know. And REAP is what we were able to pay for all of our summer professional development with. We just got awarded again for that. It's what's allowing us to do a lot of more professional development for our teachers. It's fantastic. Then you see the ESSERs. And I only have to report on those one more time. So
That's good.
I will give an update to ESSER just super quick. I'm just in the process of going back and forth with eGrants right now and OPI. I'm just trying to get some of those documents cleaned up so that those last cash requests can go through. And then ESSER should be done. It all has to be allocated by the end of September. So, you guys already decided those allocations, so it's just in the process of getting a lot of those documents done, getting them cleaned up, and then ESSER will be completed. And then you'll just see the flex forfeiture on there and the SRSA. Going through, and then this one's a little different, it has the schedule changes, so it shows you the ending fund balance. But then this one also has to re-report those project reporter summaries. And this one, I wouldn't look too heavily into that summary for the project reporters, just because that's pulling out of Black Mountain. It's not pulling out of, like, the actual totals of these are up there. This is just in my system. So if I just put in the project reporter code and don't give it a fund balance, that's why you might see a negative in there or something. So I wouldn't go off of that part necessarily. Then we go to Fund 28, which is our technology fund, and we don't really use this fund. We used to have a technology levy that funded quite a bit of stuff, and that ran out. And so you can see we don't get a lot of revenue. You know, this past year it was $1,500 and some change. So there's not a lot of tech advancements you can do with that. So we have maybe a couple little expenditures throughout the year that get coded there instead of doing the general fund, but nothing heavy. But you can see that the ending fund balance is just a little bit shy of 13,000. That is steadily dropping though. You know, a few years ago it was around 17,000, then it went to 15,000. So just know that it is dropping. It is dropping a little bit each year.
Because we're using it?
Just a little bit, yeah, every year. Yeah, and as you can see, like the revenue is less. So for 2023, it was a little over 1,600 for revenue, and then last year it was a little over 1,500. So that's steadily dropping too, which doesn't help. So Fund 50 is our debt service fund. And this is kind of a hard one because we don't have any debt anymore. We don't have a debt service, we don't have a bond. But we still have a balance in there. So it doesn't get used, it can't be used unless we have another bond. So it just kind of keeps rolling over, and just collecting tax revenue. Yeah. And then you go on to Fund 61, which is the Building Reserve Fund. And you can see we don't highly use this fund, which is good because there are just specific things that you can use it for. This one will be, though, the fund, I'll just remind, this is the fund that's going to be hit for that freezer. So just keep that in mind, cause you can see like our revenues, there's not a whole lot that comes in. I tried to ask the county why the revenue was such a difference on this one. I'm still waiting for an answer that I actually understand. So once I get that, I'll try to give an update on that, because that was the one part of the TFS where it really stood out to me, like, there's no revenue, why is there no revenue? So as soon as I get that answer that I like, I'll let you know. And then we go to 82, and like I said, this is not the savings interlocal fund, this is the preschool interlocal fund. Okay, so their revenue went up a little bit, and that is set by the board, so again, that's not a surprise, and it's set by their board, their board. And then you can see the expenditures in there. None of them are super different. And then, yeah, their fund balance is still sitting very, very well. I will give an update to the CBEE, our preschool. As of right now, we are in the process of trying to find a new special education preschool teacher and 2 paraprofessionals for that. So all 4 schools have been appraised of the situation, and they also all know what needs to be done on their end if we can't find these teachers, because we are still legally required to do right by those kids, but just our kids. So if it doesn't happen this year, then Blue Creek's kids will go to Blue Creek for their minutes and stuff. But we are actively trying to find people to keep this up, because it is a really, really good program. Otherwise, if it doesn't happen, this fund will just stay open, it'll just flow through. And then we go to Fund 84, which is our student extracurricular fund. And this is the only fund that doesn't pull directly from Black Mountain because it's not housed in Black Mountain. Those are those other Excel sheets that you guys see in the consent agenda.
And Black Mountain is our accounting software.
That is our accounting software, it is. Yes. And so this one, I don't want you to freak out when you see the no revenue. It was just reported differently on this one. So there was revenue. You've seen it every month. It was just reported differently on this. I just entered in the total balance that was there. So that is just good to know. So for the total activities fund, the ending balance was just a little shy of 25,000. But just remember that that's the total activities fund. That's not just the activity line in there. And then after that, so what the detail expenditure report does, this feeds in, is so you can see it doesn't have every single code that you just went through. These are specific codes that get pulled to go on to the next page, which is your special education reversion. So what these are doing is pulling numbers to make sure that we are spending enough money on special education. And then the main part you want to look at on that page 32, the special education reversion page, is that line G says 0. That means we are meeting our numbers, okay? If that has a number in it, that means we have to pay back because we didn't do enough, okay? And then it goes in into the detailed part for the special education reversion, which is just pulling more of those codes, okay? And then we go into our fixed assets, depreciation, and net fixed assets. There is one line on here you'll see that has the triple 3 red stars on it. So at the end of the last audit that we did, so 22, 23. Our auditor helped me really clean up the asset spreadsheet. And so she prepped it all, refigured it so that it was lined out better. So this was a different section that she had to add in there. So that's why you see the 0 beginning balance and the adjustment. It was just reconfigured so that it better explains our fixed assets. The governmental didn't change. We didn't have any adjustments or removals for there. And then you have your long-term liabilities, which is just the compensated absences, and then the OPEB. In the OPEB, I did ask for auditor input on that one because that usually goes off of, it's done every 2 years, and it's usually done during your audit. So last year, it would have been done. But it wasn't, and so we were advised just to keep the same number because it hasn't been reevaluated yet. And then the other part of net pension liability is going into the PERS and the TRS. And these are set numbers by those 2 entities. So they keep track of everything. So I enter into these 2 systems every single payroll. Some of our employees go to PERS and most go to TRS. And then they keep track of it on their side through all of those reports, and that's how they get these numbers. So these are straight from them. So you can see PERS went down and then TRS went up. And that is just because we, just the fluctuation in staff. Yeah. Oh, this was not supposed to be added, sorry. That's Haley's. Sorry. Okay, so any questions on the TFS, on how the school's money was spent? It's a lot to go through, it is a big report.
Any questions? I give a motion to adopt the TRS for the 24 year.
I move that we adopt the 2023-2024 fiscal year TFS.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any public comment? All right. Let's see.
Okay,
Adoption of the 25 budget. Yay.
Okay, you want me to talk first?
Yes, go.
Okay. Okay, this isn't as big, but this is just as important. Okay, so our taxable valuation went up, which is fantastic. Fiscal year 24, it was about 6,008,000 with some change. So 800,000, sorry. So that's great. It did go up a little bit, which is great. You can see that the A&B taxable valuation is 234. And again, that's because we do the 3-year average A&B because it benefits us more. You can either do a by year or do the 3-year average, and you can see that our 3-year average is higher than what we actually had this last year, so that's great. This next page is the big page. This shows you everything in a nutshell. Okay, so you can see all of the adopted budgets, and I'm just gonna tell you, this is not sent in yet because it does have to be approved by you guys first. So this is what I have put in based on the numbers given and what we did talk about back in early spring. But just again, know that some of these are permissively levied where you have a little bit more leeway in what that adopted budget number is. For the general fund, you don't have leeway on that one, that is what it is. Okay, so, I mean, I won't beat around the bush, that is less than this year, or than last year, sorry. Okay, and that's because we had that drop again in our A&B. Not a surprise, we are taking into account for that drop. I wasn't worried about it during negotiations, I'm not really worried about it now, especially after seeing what we actually expended last year. That doesn't mean though, I will just put this out there, it is not a guarantee, but there might come at the end of the year possibly that we have to relook at the interlocal fund and see if any expenditures need to be recoded to that for the general fund. At this point, I'm not worried about that, but I do have to give you guys a heads up that that could be a possibility, just going into that. Okay, and then you can see our total reserves again, they're topped up to that 10%. And then you can see that column F, that is that reappropriated amount that I was talking about that goes back into this year's budget. So 104,000 and some change is feeding into that 1.8 million. Okay, and that is how it is lessening those district mills for our taxpayers. And then you see the transportation. Again, this one was done with the on-schedule amount based on our routes. But this is one that is permissively levied. So what this number consists of is that on-schedule transportation worksheet. And then also when we had talked last time, I had kind of proposed just a 5% increase on any of those permissive levy funds. So that's what this number is. We don't have Fund 11 because we don't own any buses. Tuition, they don't have reserves. So that, it did raise again, like I said, the ones that can raise raised about 5%. We're not expecting any more students to hit into the, branch, thank you. But this one, just so that you're aware, this is the funny one coming into this year. So at the end of this year, because that new tuition law is, so it's the end of this year when expenditures go out to all the schools and revenues go out to all the schools, except the revenues don't hit until next year.
Right.
But the expenditures, okay, so it's always a year in the rears for this. So I don't want you to see this 92,000 and be like, oh my, are we gonna be able to pay all of the out-of-district students to all the other schools? No, we're not paying until next year, okay? Retirement, that one's just a little bit up. Adult education is set at the 824.25. That is one that you can change, but it is one where there's no like taxable revenues coming into that. So that would be if you took like money out of the general fund and put it in there. We don't have any adult education here and we haven't for years. It is an open account because we have a fund balance in it, but that's why it's always stayed that amount. We don't have a non-operating fund. And then the technology fund is raised a little bit, and that is one that cannot change. So that is based on OPI. And then you go into the flexibility fund. That one, again, is not one that we can change, but that one also hasn't changed. That's what our numbers were last year. And then you see the building reserve fund, and that is another one that cannot change. And all of those last few don't have a reserve amount that you can do. So total proposed adopted budget would be 2.6 million and some change. It's right at that bottom left corner. Okay, you'll see that debt service is pulled off to the bottom. And that's because we have that balance in there, but we don't have any bonds, and that's why it's pulled down to the bottom. Okay, so that's your big nutshell right there. And then again, it's gonna go and delve a little deeper into each fund. So it's gonna show you on the next page for the general fund limits and reserves worksheet. And this is just showing like where your money is, where that's coming in. So your revenue's coming in on there, shows you the prior year budget data and then the current year budget data. And you'll see right there, so it shows, I'll just explain these four numbers real quick. So it has your base budget, and these are lines G, H, I, and J. So it has your base budget, your max budget limit, your highest budget without a vote, and then, well, K, your highest budget, okay? So we have the highest budget without a vote because our levy did not pass. And so the difference, and then the base budget, that is the least like that you have to do. Okay? The difference between the max budget limit and then the highest amount with a vote. So I had to ask OPI to clarify for me why there's a difference in these two numbers, why they show these two numbers. And that's because, the board could have approved to not go out for the full fund amount for the levy. You could have done a lesser amount, that sort of thing. That's why they have those two numbers there. And then it's just again showing last year's data compared to this coming year's data. And then the last part is just the mill levies. Does anybody have questions on the general fund proposed? Again, it's not one that we can really change.
That's what it is.
Yes, it is.
Anybody have any questions?
Okay, so then going into the transportation fund, again, this is one that you can discuss if you'd like to. It's just showing you where all of those, under the transportation schedule data, that's showing you where all of those are coming from, how it's broken down. So you can see that there's the on schedule that I talked about, and that's the one that goes off of our maps. And then that fund balance for budget, that's what pulled over from the end of last year, that 76. And then it just breaks down, so you'll see like the on schedule is broken down to the two transportation reimbursements. And you see the levies and what those mills are. And then the total estimated revenues to adopt that, it should match that adopted budget at the top. I'm gonna skip the next one because again, we don't have fund to levy. And then you go to the tuition fund. And this is again one that you can change. It has, obviously it's gonna start changing quite a bit. But again, just for this year, it is just those kids going to the ranch. So this more than adequately covers that. Retirement fund is the next one. And again, these are just showing how that adopted budget is broken down. Non-operating fund we don't have. Technology fund. You'll see the adopted budget is higher than what our ending balance was. So it's just kind of in this little tiny like revolving, slowly decreasing movement. Flexibility fund again is just set at that. We don't really use this fund. Debt service fund, again, is just sitting there. And then the building reserve fund. So again, for this one, just keep into account that project will be coming out of here, so it'll be less a little bit. Any questions on any of the proposed budget for this year?
No questions?
Numbers.
Alright, can I get a motion to adopt the 25 fiscal year budget?
I so move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any public comment? Alright, out of district students. Can I get a motion?
A through
A, B, Hell, alright,
I'll make a motion.
we're gonna do them separately, hold on, I forgot.
Yes, I don't see
Just
We're at
say you're wrong.
11, is that, no, 12. My, apparently my alphabet's wrong.
I make a motion to approve student A.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? And get a motion for student B.
And so moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? And I get a motion for acceptance of student C.
And so moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? And I get a motion for acceptance of student D.
And so moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye. All those opposed? And I get a motion for acceptance of student E.
And so moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And I get a motion for the acceptance of student F.
And so moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And I get a motion for the acceptance of student G.
And so moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And I get a motion for the acceptance of student H.
And so moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And I get a motion for acceptance of student I.
I so moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? And I get a motion for acceptance of student J.
And so moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? And I get a motion for acceptance of student K.
And so moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And I get a motion for acceptance of student L.
I so moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any public comment? All right, there we go. 12 more.
Whew. And I already have more that just came later than when this was posted.
Okay.
I got more coming.
All right, can I get a motion for the approval of our audit contract?
I move that we approve the audit contract.
I'll second that.
All right, so our auditing firm is Strong Associates. And this auditing contract, you'll see that it's a bit more, through that contract. That's just because they are doing 2 years. Because we voted not to do one last year. So they are gonna be auditing 23, 24, and 22, 24.
What attachment is it? I don't see it.
Because they're not a number 10. And 10.
Please. Oh, MREA?
No,
That's what number 10 is.
I'm sorry. This should be.
It's number 10, but it's MRE stuff, or MRA.
Right, that's 11.
Nope, I don't see that.
Okay. So, well, then I'll just go with this. So the contract is going to be for July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2024, so it covers the 2 years. It's $26,800, which again, like I said, is more, and it's because they're covering 2 years. That also includes them doing the OPEB. That is a separate part that they have to have done separately, just because they are our auditors doing that, just to make sure that it follows the guidelines.
It's okay.
That's part of that liabilities that came up, on the net pension. It's just other,
It's, um, let's see.
like other personal employee benefits or
Yeah,
something like
something
that.
like that.
Otherwise, I mean, the rest of this is literally just the jargon for it. And then the other one, it just has the letter to you guys, and it just says the scope of it. It's the same scope as what they did last time. Okay, it's just, it's 2 years worth this time, so they might have to be on site longer because they're going through 2 years. My only thing is that I don't know who the auditor is gonna be this year, so that does require probably a little bit on my side, just because the person that did the audit at Strom the last time left Strom. So while Strom still has all of our previous data, it is still somebody new coming in and relearning all of that. So it is gonna be quite the process this year. I knew that when we decided to do the 2-year instead. I would like to go back to the 1 year though after this. Now that everything is settled at the office, I would like to go back to the 1 year. But I do appreciate you guys letting me hold off for that 1 year, because it was just too much at the office at that time with everything that was going on. And I am up for this 2-year audit to come. I was really, really happy with, I mean, I don't have a lot of auditing experience, I only have the one. But they were very beneficial and helpful as auditors. She didn't just come in and be like, oh, well, that's a tick, that's a tick, that's a tick. Like, she really asked questions, but not only for her to understand, but for me to understand too. She really, really helped a lot. And just based on the emails that I have sent just to Strom in the meantime, they are really like, they really, really want business managers, myself, to understand this process, to be better at it. So the word audit is always scary. It is, but I'll be excited to learn more from them, to really just continue to clean up the practices and really just continue to learn this job. I don't have a timeline from them yet. They don't usually release that, hoping they don't pick September. Most school audits are done usually October, November, and that's when our last one was done, was November. So when I have a date, I will let you guys know when that is. I will be unavailable during that, but yeah, so I'm very happy with their services. That 2-year amount is still less than what the other quoted amount was from the previous one when we switched contractors for this.
What did we pay for 1 year audit?
It's about 12, a little, maybe like 12.8, I think was the last one.
Any questions? All right, all those in favor of the adoption of the audit contract, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any public comment? All right.
Now you can open number 10, that's supposed to be 11.
All right. Can I get a motion for the MREA renewal?
Move that we approve the MRE 8 renewal.
Second that.
Okay, so this one,
What did we do last time?
I was trying to remember that
I can't
too.
remember.
Couldn't remember.
we did option, let me just. We did option 1, but we also did the food bid opt-out. Cause Sharon did not want the food bid.
Okay, I was gonna
She
say-
was set, but we did do the option 1. We didn't use the legal counsel
Just
portion
gonna
of
say,
it last
that's a
year.
lot of money to pay for
Yes,
not using the legal counsel.
yes. I will say, I do think that the membership is beneficial. And like that first page kind of explains what they do. But it is nice to just stay in the communication of all of this. Like it really is nice, because there are some things that come through here that don't come through the other ones, or they lag a little bit. The legal counsel portion, I would suggest probably taking that off and maybe doing tier 2 instead, but that's
I
up
know.
to you guys.
Just as a, kind of explain, so when we opted, we didn't have this for a while. We opted back into it with all the changes coming with the legislative sessions. This really helped us keep on top of some of that. They do a great job of sending, when we go with their membership, sending stuff out to us to stay on top of what's going on in the legislature and what that means to us. So it was very beneficial,
And that's coming up again in
and that's coming up
January.
again, yeah.
So the letter lists that the range is 125 to 1,200, but then the quote's 1,500. Do you think they just, or is that not the same thing?
Probably increased it and didn't increase it in their main letter, maybe. Is there a time frame we need to do that?
To have this approved. They did kind of push a little bit through email, just seeing if we were still going to be a part of this, because they'd like
I'm just
to.
wondering if we can double check on what that, the 12 versus the 1,500.
I could ask. The only thing is that you guys aren't having a regular board meeting in September, so I'd push it pretty far back. I mean, you could always make a motion to say that you approve the membership contingent upon,
Yeah, I mean, I,
and I can always still ask for clarification on it, if you guys do decide to still move forward with it today, I can still ask for the clarification, because you're not voting on the amount, you're just voting on the membership, so I asked for clarification, and yeah, maybe the bill is supposed to be only 1,200.
I'm okay doing it. I think it was beneficial. I don't think we need the legal part of it, because we never ever use that.
We have our own attorney, so why pay for another one?
Right, exactly. But it is nice to have another option of guidance out there, I guess is.
Well, it's specific to,
And they have their own lobbyists too, that we get to.
Right.
I think that'd be my
interjection would be, part of this is kind of a partnership relationship, right? That these small schools are in a fight, and politically, I think the partnership becomes more and more important. Obviously, you know, I haven't necessarily been to Helena or anything like that, but the lobbyists are speaking. They are trying to protect some of these smaller schools with the bills and stuff that the legislation is moving forward. Part of me says is that you send a fairly strong message by acknowledging the membership that, you know, you're in the fight, you need your support, bring it together, so.
And it is nice because they work quite heavily in conjunction with NASBO.
Why does Sharon want to opt out of the free food bid membership?
The bids are already done. And so she does get a bit of a say on where we go for that. I mean, the bid is, you know, but she's very happy with where we do get our food from. And she just didn't think going through that process all again would be beneficial when there's no complaints to really be had.
Thoughts?
I think it's invaluable to join as a member.
Yeah, I think I mean, my suggestion or vote would be to do the membership, but just not the legal, remove the legal
Option
council.
Option 2 with the bid out.
Yeah,
I think it just clarify that.
yeah.
I
just
will
clarify.
verify the price.
I think it's okay at 1,500,
It-
but
yeah,
if
I
we
mean-
can get it for 12.
Yeah,
I told them we're not paying $1 more because that's what they have in the letter.
that's right.
You
My,
guys screwed
my
up.
guess is they changed their
The-
numbers and didn't change it in their, letter.
We'll only accept $1,200.
That is our bottom line.
That's what you said in your letter, that's what we're
That's right.
checking. We're scratching the 5 off.
All right, can I get a motion then?
I move that we pay for the MREA membership, option 2, with the food bid opt-out.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All right. I get a motion for the co-op renewal. What co-op? Which is it?
This is the one that he's.
Oh, the one
You have to approve
Please,
every
that's
year
not
if you're
okay.
gonna stay in or not.
Can I get a motion for the adoption, for the renewal of the co-op?
I'll make a motion to renew our co-op membership.
What is it?
Yeah, does it have a bigger title?
Yes, sorry.
Instead of just co-op?
Yellowstone West Carbon County Special Services Cooperative.
I'll make a motion to renew our co-op membership in the Yellowstone West Carbon County Special Services Cooperative.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? This is the board that Kelly will sit on when we adopt that next after we.
Well, that's the next item.
That's the
That's the
next.
next.
Right now Kelly is the,
And this just is,
The one that talks about students.
yes,
Okay.
I was trying to put that in a good word, a good way. Collaborative discussion on students and their,
Movement with the school districts.
any questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any public comment? All right, can I get a motion for the, I've heard that, Yellowstone?
Yellowstone Carbon County.
Yellowstone Carbon County Co-op Joint Advisory Board Member,
Do we have to name
Yes, you
Mr.
do.
Hornby. Mr. Kelly Hornby.
him? I'll make a motion to appoint Mr. Harvey, the Joint Advisory Board. Yellowstone Carbon.
I'll second that.
Any questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Okay, we are on to new hires, yay! Okay, tell me when you're ready. Tell me when you're ready. All right, can I get a motion for the new hire of Marshall Coulthard, is that how you say it? For the 24-25 school year as music teacher.
And so moved.
I'll second.
I sure can. So he comes from Miles City. He actually, has taught in this area. He was at Elder Grove for a while. Went back to Miles City and taught and did take a year off, helping his dad run his ranch. He's excited to come back. He's been in the classroom. He actually was a classmate of our former music teacher, so they are friends. He comes highly recommended when we were kind of dealing with the music issue last year. Mr. Patton, who I hold in high regard, and he's a music teacher at West, recommended him. So I actually called him throughout the year and kind of bugged him. And then in the summer, I left about 7 messages on his phone, I was
Really
right out
bugged
the gate. Finally, I got a hold of him, and he said, yeah, I'm interested. So he brought him in, interviewed him, he did a nice job. We're excited to have him. I think, it'll be good just to have another Mel in the building to some degree. And, I think we'll do well with him, so we're excited.
Questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, can I get a motion to hire Erin, how do you say Erin?
Thormalin.
For the 24-25 school year as cook's assistant.
I so move.
I'll second that.
Erin has already been doing this job.
Yeah, Erin
At the end of
filled
last
in
year, she filled in.
for our long-term, absence in there. She's familiar with the kitchen, she's been in this building before. In the
Okay,
writing
sounds
role,
good,
and, she's just connected. She wants to be here, she's excited. She's part of the community, so we're not missing a beat with her.
Great. Any questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Can I get a motion for the adoption of new hire Laura Willems,
Willems.
can't read that, for the 24-25 school year as paraprofessional.
Okay, so moved.
I'll second.
Laura is, maybe in her second profession, she, is excited to be here. She too has some connection with family here. She has experience in her previous community as a paraprofessional. There is some pause with regard to kind of her schedule. She just came on board after having made plans for some parental support or in retirement, those kinds of things, so she'll be out of the building. But just because of her resume and her acumen and the need for quality paraprofessional, we're recommending bringing her on board. She will miss some days throughout the year based on previous plans. But I think she will fit in, especially with some of our more challenging students. She has great experience there, and she does have pre-K experience. So if we ever get in a position where we can find a pre-K teacher, we'll at least be able to provide some support until we can maybe find some more paraprofessionals.
Questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Can I get a motion for the hiring of Michael Brown for the 24-25 school year for athletic director?
Okay, so moved.
I'll second.
He served in this role last year, did a nice job. In fact, he's been at this position this month, getting our schedules out, completed with the scheduling meeting, so he's well on his way.
Okay. Any questions? All right, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Can I get a motion for the hiring of Michael Brown for the 24-25 school year for the cross-country coach?
Okay, so moved.
I'll second.
When do they start running?
I was just gonna say, pretty quick.
Pretty quick.
Yeah.
Can we set them up their own Spartan course now? We're not getting more.
You know, just, you see his name come up, I do think that's one way is we can continue to keep our claws in teachers here, is provide them some other opportunities to augment kind of their livelihood. And, you know, it's a passion area for some of these people, so if we can honor that, it's a good thing.
Great. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right. Can I get a motion for the hiring of Jeff Morales for the 24-25 school year for the 7th, 8th grade girls basketball coach?
Okay, so moved.
I'll second.
He's been here
You're
for.
familiar with him. He does a nice job. Kids love him. He did say he just wants the upper end kids and not the lower end kids, so we're in a position to hire an assistant. There have been some people that have entertained it and are thinking about it, so I don't think we'll run into problems. We don't even know if we'll need a lower level,
Right.
just in terms of numbers, but if our numbers continue to grow throughout the school, obviously we might have a little more interest in some of those lower level schools.
Any questions there? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And can I get a motion for the hiring of Jeff Morales for the 24-25 school year for the 7th, 8th grade basketball boys coach?
I so move.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Can I get a motion for the superintendent renewal? We put this off and tabled it to change the dates on it, so we're just bringing it back and getting it done. So can I get a motion for the superintendent renewal?
I so move.
I'll second that.
For what dates?
His last contract was for just that year. A normal superintendent contract is 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, we wanna get it back on then on all.
So you wanna do from 2024 to 2027.
I move that we renew the superintendent contract from 2024 to 2027.
Any questions? Anything you want to add? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Put the ankle monitor on now.
Yeah, and now you're on the hook.
You're stuck.
All right, can I get a, motion for the superintendent contract renewal with those same dates of 2024 to 2027?
I move that we approve the superintendent contract for 2024 to 2027.
A second one?
Those are good.
Are we discussing any changes? Besides dates?
I don't have a copy of it, so I don't know.
We are not, the agreement was it would stay except for the dates, and then in January, we would re-evaluate.
Yes.
Get evaluated, and we would talk.
Yeah. We basically, we're putting you back on the same schedule as most superintendents.
The same schedule, and then, I agreed not to a salary.
Right.
Bump, just until I completed the complete year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fair.
which will be like November until January.
Yeah, I think I come in front of you in January for the
Yeah.
eval and then those
And then
conversations.
the conversation, yeah. All right, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All right, we are just on, I asked Danny to give us, just a little overview of where the interlocal was sitting, after we made the decisions to pull some things out of interlocal, just so we kind of all knew where we were. So.
So again, at the end of last year, after the transfer was made, for the revenue, but then there was also that expenditure at the end of last year, that was for all of the agreed upon, superintendent search services, all of that stuff. So with those two, the total start for this year is $343,009.93. Now, you already had an expenditure that you approved at the last board meeting, which was the $40,000 to put into the activity fund. So subtract 40,000 from that, which will give you the $303,009.93. So that is the official where that budget is at right now. There is gonna be another small expenditure just for the petty cash fund, but it's small. It's like maybe $2,000. I just don't have that officially because I was doing the two reports, so I haven't really delved into that to give an accurate number. But that one, the petty cash fund is just like any school. It is whatever money you put into that fund. There's no revenue in there. It's just more, it's petty cash, so that we have just some of that small amount money to work every day. That's what that is. We have not added money to that fund since I've been here, that I know of. So it's now just time where it's just kind of gotten depleted, so it just needs a little boost again to just keep running. That's all
And
that
otherwise,
is.
we would have to take that out of the general fund, so.
Yeah.
Instead of messing with our general fund where it's set at, we thought just taking it out of the general would be a little bit easier, just so it is such a minute amount.
It's just a tiny.
Will, can we make that $3,000? $3,009.93, please?
To make it easy.
Yes.
You don't like the $9.93?
No.
Yeah, so that's why it's still just under information and it's not coming up under, does it need to come up under action if it's under 5? No. Well, so that's just one that's on there, it just hasn't been done through yet, but that will be another small expenditure. Other than that, I don't know of any other expenditures coming up this year. Like I did mention before, we'll have to reevaluate at the end of the year, getting towards the end of the year time. But it's a very healthy fund. That's a really good amount to have in that savings.
Alright, questions there? Alright, policy time. Alright, we are on second reading for a couple of these, 4 of them. And then the, non-resident student enrollment, policy 3141 is the last one we'll do. We'll discussion, going with that one, so. Can I get a motion to accept the second reading for policy 2165F?
I'll second.
Anybody have any questions there? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any public comment? I forgot to ask earlier, sorry guys. Might kick me. Can I get a motion for the acceptance of the second reading for policy 2250F?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Can I get a motion for the acceptance of the second reading of policy 3614F3?
I so move.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Can I get a motion for the acceptance of the second reading of policy 4330F2?
I so move.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All right, we want to talk about, go for it.
So, earlier this year, you approved 3141. And in the language, there was some optional language that we chose not to put in the policy. And we added the date of September 30th that would be a deadline. I think what is giving me pause is that if we want to have any control of students coming in and out of our district, mainly in our district, it has to be tied to the strategic plan. Did you put those other documents in, the kind of the proposed verbiage around the 3141?
I put in the ones that you sent, the strategic plan ones.
Yeah, I don't know what, no, I can't find them on there, so I don't know. But
I wonder if I put them.
anyway, in the optional language, there's some verbiage like, the board would consider late option or late application based on alignment to the strategic plan. We opted not to put that in. So now we are in a position where we're taking students on, right? And we have one class section that is at full capacity. We would have trouble taking on even a resident in our area student in that particular class. And the way it's written now, we don't necessarily have any kind of teeth to say yes or no. And we kind of knew this was coming, but we didn't necessarily know what it would look like. Well, now the association is starting to give recommendation on how this can look. Because we're having a strategic planning meeting next month, I don't know, since this is an action item, I would almost encourage us to table this conversation and around this policy with the idea that we're going to revisit it after our strategic plan, because we're going to have some augmenting documentation in addition to the strategic plan that we craft, so we can take control of this a little better and protect the district. I just feel we're open right now without the ability to say no. And I tend to be an individual that wants to have open doors and wants to get as many people as possible and grow. But there's some hindrance to that too. It can put pressure on our system, it can put pressure on our teachers, it can put pressure on administration and the board. So we have to have some verbiage that will protect you. So it is under an action. I would maybe recommend we kind of table this conversation. But I did add those documents, and it would behoove, I think, all of us to try to learn a little more about that, read those options that they're thinking about, and as I come across more, I can shoot it out your way. Just to be ready for that conversation, because the strategic plan work, the first part of it's going to be real easy for you guys. I think you have some ideas about goals, we can present data to you, and it'll be real easy for you to say, yeah, we need to improve our achievement by X amount, or whatever it is, our reading scores, wherever you wanna go, that's gonna be easy. The real conversation is gonna be about how do you want to play this, 3141 out and have supporting documents so you can make a decision on a kid.
And I will just mention, I apologize, that was put under the supplemental documents under the admin report. So I do apologize.
So it's in
That's-
there, I
That's
just-
where it is, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
So take a look at those, because there are two documents
That's
that I think do a nice job of maybe delineating how you would make that decision.
Yes.
Oh, it got stuck under that
I
one.
believe it's
Yeah.
number 4. Yes.
That's kind of fun.
Yep, it should be that, I
Oh, yeah,
apologize.
it is. And I would take what Mr. Humphrey said to heart, and I believe we should table until we can get some work around our strategic planning and see how this can actually, what this should actually look like. So I would, if anybody wanted to motion,
No, I agree with that. Doesn't make sense to approve something now and then change it.
right, exactly, and then turn around and have to change it and stuff. So can I get a motion to table the policy 3141 until after our strategic planning meeting?
Also,
I would almost rephrase that slightly, until after the adoption of our strategic plan, so that we can have multiple meetings before we come up with our plan. We're not gonna come up with a plan at the first meeting.
Can I just look strategic, until the strategic plan is finalized?
Yeah.
So,
All right, all those in favor? Nope.
well,
I
no,
need a
because
second.
he remotioned.
I need a second. All right, all those in favor?
I,
Aye. All those opposed? All right, any public comment? Okay. All right. Let me get back to my agenda. Nope. Okay, now I have
41932
41932,
through 41984.
4984. Okay. Can I get a motion for the acceptance of the consent agenda, check numbers 41932 through 41984?
I assume,
Second.
Anybody have any questions? Any other questions?
Oh, I will mention, I guess, just put on there, because you're probably gonna see under the extracurricular fund, that colorful Excel. So, I'm making sure. And then also the list of checks. So I just do wanna mention that that 61724 that you see coming out of the activity line 1. No, sorry
I know
guys.
this is always.
Scroll down. And then it's this left tab,
Okay.
and then it's right there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so what that is you'll see on the list of checks, that's just two checks to some of our employees for per diem reimbursements. That was for some of the summer conference. It was the easiest to do it this way, but this is getting reimbursed back from the general fund because that is where per diem comes from.
Okay.
So this is coming back into this line, it's just how the checks were written. But I just wanted to mention that.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No comment? Yep. Okay.
don't put it on the spot now.
I know, right? All right. We don't have any public comment. Items for next time. We don't have any. Items for the next time.
Do you want next time? Okay.
Next, October.
I mean, there's the given, there's policies, committee updates, any board training approved out of districts. And then if I pull the purple sheet,
Gonna have student council come,
Ooh,
and we're gonna also probably invite the sporting team in for your guys' recognition.
start those.
We'll start those again.
yeah. Perfect.
are there,
Yes, we'll be
are
back
there
in
any
school, won't we?
contracts that mean you guys are gonna need to approve. it.
There will be,
We need that before.
Yeah, we might have to have
Do a
just
special
a quick,
For the best interest.
yeah. And we'll have to. one
because the one right now, there'd be one maybe for the one that we did today. But then the one for second grade, I don't know if we need more direction first before I can contact
Yeah, I
you.
don't know.
So what I'm, without names or anything, what I'm trying to do is work with OPI to get an emergency provision for her. Yeah. Rocky has agreed, the provost has agreed, they're real excited, they've adjusted her curriculum. They, she's excited to be here. She's agreed to everything, so she's coming on board as an employee.
Okay.
We just have to make sure that we're moving forward with OPI correctly.
Okay.
So that might be a part of the emergency plan as well.
Okay.
I just don't know, like, would you categorize that as a long-term or?
Yeah, that, I don't know how you do that.
My guess
contract,
is
yeah.
that you're gonna approve it as an emergency hire.
Okay. So we may have to do a quick virtual, just to get those couple contracts done.
Okay.
Okay, because that, we wanna do those. Not never.
So I have that noted, that that'll have to be a special meeting. The only other thing that comes up is that I need to give you, it'll already be that time in October, I'll have to give you guys an update on count day.
Indeed.
But that we're already 2 months in. That was the only
Crazy.
other thing on that purple sheet
Oh,
that
okay.
came up. And that date, so the next regular board meeting would be October 10th.
All right, perfect. Anything else, guys? All right, can I get a motion for adjournment?
I move that we adjourn the meeting as of 7:12 p.m.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, thank you, guys.
Mm-hmm.